Hello and welcome to the first episode of Crowbars and Portal Guns, the podcast that jumps deep into the lore of the Half-Life and Portal universe. Today, we will be exploring a mystery that no one has ever figured out, so big that it's been a topic of discussion since the late 1990s, a question Valve has been avoiding answering for years. Today, we explore the lore and theories behind gaming's biggest mystery, the G-Man. The G-Man is a character that can be seen throughout all of Half-Life. In Half-Life 1, you see him watching you from afar in the Black Mesa Research Facility. In this game, you play as MIT graduate Gordon Freeman. You work as a materials handler for Black Mesa. Basically, you wheel a cart with a crystal into a laser. But one day, some suspect to be May 16th during an unknown year in the early 2000s, you come into work and do your job as normal, only to have the crystal shatter and cause a rift between our dimension and the dimension where these crystals have been coming from, a place called Zen. It had turned out that this was the purest and most unstable crystal that has ever been obtained and put under this laser of a device called the anti-mass spectrometer. So after taking a crowbar, Gordon has to fight his way through Black Mesa, avoiding the Zenian creatures such as Houndeye, headcrabs, and vortigaunts. Eventually, he's transported to Zen and he has to defeat a giant creature called the Nilanth, who is keeping the rifts open between Zen and Earth. After you kill it, the G-Man finally approaches you. He tells you that his employers and himself are now in control of Zen. He then offers you an unspecified job, and when you accept, he puts you in stasis for 20 years. After looking at every detail about this shifty, well-dressed man, I've come to a conclusion about who he is. The G-Man is really a Nilanth. Let me explain. It is known that all creatures on Zen, including the Nilanth, have fled from an alien empire known as the Combine. The Combine, after detecting the rift between Earth and Zen, also known as a Resonance Cascade, came to Earth and took it over. 20 years later, the G-Man puts you back on Earth. He does this because your arrival, after so long, is the perfect thing to start an uprising with Earth's resistance against the Combine. Now, who would want the Combine defeated? The Nilanth would. Just like Earth, the Combine also had taken over the Nilanth's homeworld, so revenge is probably something that species has on its mind. It's also worth noting that anyone allied to the resistance won't attempt to shoot the G-Man, but Combine forces will. Now, back in the first game, we learned that the Nilanth has control over Zen and enslaved a race of creatures called vortigaunts. As I said before, after you kill the Nilanth, the G-Man tells you that he now has control over Zen. Similar? Yeah. Also, the vortigaunts are known to be against the G-Man as well. At the beginning of Half-Life 2, Episode 1, the vortigaunts are shown taking you out of stasis and the G-Man's control. This makes sense. Of course they'd be against whatever plans the G-Man has if he's the same species as the creature of whatever enslaved them. While we're talking about the vortigaunts, I think it's worth adding that many Zen creatures can manipulate time. This is proven in Half-Life 2. If you do some exploring, you'll come across an ally known as the Singing Vortigaunt. He tells you that,
We remember the free man. We are coterminous. There is no distance between us. No false veils of time or space may intervene. We see you still in Black Mesa. Clearly we see you in the Nilanth's chamber.
Now, coterminous means having the boundaries or extent in space or time. This basically means that the Zen creatures can exist beyond time. This will explain how the G-Man was able to place Gordon in stasis outside of time, as well as how he knows what actions to take to eventually lead to the Combine's downfall. In Half-Life 2, Episode 2, we learned that the G-Man is the one who gave Black Mesa the crystal that caused the Resonance Cascade. That event led to the Combine's discovery and takeover of Earth. Then, as I said before, he places Gordon back on Earth 20 years later, at the exact moment where his arrival would cause an uprising against the Combine. This proves that he knew exactly what to do and when to do it. Those of you who have played Half-Life will know that the Nylunth you kill was the last of its kind. But in a little-known interview with Mark Laidlaw, the lead writer of Half-Life, we learn something that changes all of this. Mark is asked if other Nylunth have ever been captured by the Combine. In response to this, Mark says that particular Nylunth was the last of its kind and never captured, but some of its predecessors may have been. This tells us that some of the past Nylunth species may still exist. To go along with this, when you're fighting it, the Nylunth communicates telepathically with you. One of the things it says is this.
Comes another. Comes another.
Did you hear that? It said, comes another. Comes another. Listen again.
Comes another. Comes another.
The Nylunth is telling you that another one of its kind is coming. Another thing it says is this.
You are man. He's not man. For you he waits for you.
This is obviously referring to the G-Man, and this single voice line proves this entire theory to be correct. Nylunth tells you that you are man. He is not man. For you he waits. For you. Now, Nile is Latin for nothing, and anth is Greek for man. Nilanth, not man. We are told that the G-Man is not man. He is Nilanth. In less than 15 seconds, we are straight up told that the G-Man really is a Nylunth. I think it's also worth adding that the Nylunth looks similar to a human fetus. So is it that unbelievable that a precursor species could disguise itself as a human? Also, a few Zen creatures have a third arm in the upper part of their chest, including the Nylunth. If you watch the G-Man's cutscenes in the games carefully, you'll notice that he's constantly adjusting his tie, like something is pushing up on it, something like a third arm. Now this is just a theory, this part cannot be proved like the other parts of this podcast episode, but I think it makes sense. Whether you're in Black Mesa or fighting Combine, you can be sure the G-Man is watching you. If you don't believe this theory, I want you to know that Valve has said that canonicity is up to the player. So I think this is canon, and you might too. If you liked my first episode, make sure to subscribe. And until next time, Resistance members and test subjects, keep gaming. I also decided to quickly add one of my favorite G-Man lines to the end of the podcast. If you played Half-Life 2, then you should know it. Here it is.
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine. Not that I wish to imply you have been sleeping on the job. No one is more deserving of a rest, and all the effort in the world would have gone to waste until... well, let's just say your hour has come again.